So Wolf, I know that you do a great waiver show on Tuesday, so don't want to tip your hand 100%, but you want to throw maybe just like a couple of the more like obvious waiver guys that are going to be targeted this week out at us, just to give us something to think about.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll hit our early week 4.
Okay.
Let's dive into the early week 5 waiver wire. I'll go through quick 10 names. As you alluded to, I do a much more in-depth show on Tuesday, right around 7 p.m., and I'll answer all your waiver wire questions with that as well. So if you're catching a clip of this, please do consider coming to the live stream Tuesday,
Yeah.
7 p.m. But this will be a little preview of some of the guys. We'll get a bit more in depth. And Jameson Williams going to now be back in week 5. They changed the NFL their policy on gambling. And so it was supposed to be a 6-game suspension. We get him 2 games early. Jameson Williams, game breaker, an absolute game breaker in college. You had well over, what was his stat? 1,572 yards, 15 touchdowns on 79 catches, nearly 20 yards a pop per catches. He has that real speed, 4.39 40 at 6'1", just unfair type of game-wrecking speed. When I interviewed Mike Tannenbaum about that rookie class, he compared him to like a bigger Tyreek Hill and said if anybody's going to make an enormous long-term impact, he thought Jameson Williams had the highest ceiling of anyone in this class, despite citing Garrett Wilson as the immediate high floor guy. So there is some upside. You look at college, they always survey who's going to be the top in the scouting department, who's the top receiver in this class. He actually had 75% of the votes, and that's a class that includes Olave, that includes Garrett Wilson. That was, of course, pre-draft. He has done nothing since then. I would not rather have Jameson Williams on my team, real life or fantasy-wise, than some of those other names, but just goes to show you the type of stuff this guy was built with. Michael Wilson, another receiver, having a huge day. Only 1% rostered, 2 TDs, 7 catches, 76 yards. He was a training camp all-star, and it's good to see when a training camp all-star actually translates onto the NFL field. Had over 22 fantasy points on the day. He's a thick build, 6'1", 216, and he doesn't have incredible long speed, just a 4.58 40. Not a crazy production profile in college, but for his big size, 76th percentile for burst score, 79th percentile for agility, 73rd for catch radius. He can move. He's really quick laterally, quicker than a guy that size typically is. So I really like this Michael Wilson kid. Seems like they're starting to really work him in. All the talk about the preseason, every first down going to him and moving the chains and red zone body, it's all starting to come into play. Definitely a guy I'd be willing to spend a good amount of my fab, probably 20% or so on there. Jaleel McLaughlin, my next waiver wire guy, you guys got to be looking out for. Only 2% rostered, 7 carries, 72 yards, in addition to 3 catches for 32 and a score. So 104 yards from scrimmage, a touchdown on just 10 touches, 3 catches. A very, very solid day. He ended up out-touching Samaje Perine after we had that Javonte Williams injury. Don't forget, this guy was the all-time leading rusher in NCAA history, 8,166 rushing yards on 1,250 carries. He's only 5'8", 187 pounds, but he can absolutely tote the rock and take a featured workload. 79 touchdowns as well, despite that small size. He had 42% of his team's yards and touchdowns in college, which is crazy. And he lit up the preseason too. He had 4 touchdowns this preseason, at least 1 in every single game. He had over 5 yards a pop in all of his games as well. This kid can play. He's a baller. And Sean Payton cited him out as this is like my we know Sean Payton with smaller backs, with pass catching skill sets. He can maximize those guys. So if Javonte's going to miss any time, Jaleel McLaughlin, we'll talk more on Tuesday as we get a better sense of Javonte's injury. He could be a guy you want to bid about $25-$30 on to go get. We've talked about Tajae Spears a million times on here. Yeah. As much as we talked about him, still only 24% rostered. Again, 58 total yards today. 8 yards a pop on his 5 carries for 40 yards, looking real solid there. And just a reminder, if anything happens to Derrick Henry, I did also look at their playoff schedule. Houston twice, Seattle in the other game. All of those are top 5 matchups right now for running backs. So not that we ever want anything to happen to Henry, but if it does, that second half schedule is so juicy. So it's a good reason to buy low on Henry if people are still worried about him. This would have obviously been the week to do it ahead of time. But if something happens to him with that 1,800 carry cliff, should he hit that, Tajae Spears would be set up for huge success down the stretch of 2023. I wanted to mention as well Sam Howell, 18% rostered, 290 yards, that score today, 40 yards rushing, 19 points. All looks good. He gets a good Eagles front, and now he gets the Bears on Thursday Night Football. Obviously a great stream there if you're looking for a quarterback. I have Goff as my QB1 right now. I'll probably be sneaking in a dollar bid to try to get Sam Howell, stream him on Thursday night instead, a little bit more upside. Wanted to just mention Marvin Mims as well. Only 17 snaps. It was a career high, which is still just insane that that's a high for him. He had another 30-yard catch. So he has 5 catches of 30 yards or more on the season so far. 8 of the 10 biggest plays for the Broncos have gone to Marvin Mims, and he's only playing about 20% of the snaps. 2 catches, 47 yards. Not a huge day, but still remains that elite stash, leading the NFL in yards per route run, fantasy points per route run. At some point, he'll actually run some more routes, and he'll start to dominate. So it is starting to tick up a little bit, but man, we'd love to see him smash that role. We mentioned Tyler Boyd as well, more of a T. Higgins injury contingency plan, but only 26 yards, 4 catches. The way this offense is looking, to me, I just kind of tossed him on here as, yeah, the injury, but probably more fool's gold. We also mentioned Chuba Hubbard, those 14 carries, actually more than Miles Sanders this week, played more snaps than Miles Sanders at 52% compared to 44% for Miles Sanders. So just something to note there. Didn't do anything crazy, 14 carries, 41 yards, but has that handcuff upside. And a guy seeing some work if you're desperate for a fill-in at running back. I've seen some really bad running backs on teams right now. So Chuba Hubbard getting some work, and maybe that groin injury carries over and he ultimately gets some starts. And we've seen Chuba Hubbard perform when he gets the majority of the work. He has a 3-down skill set. Michael Gallup, 18% rostered, 5 catches, 6 targets, 60 yards. They didn't really have to throw in the second half. This is a week after he had 7 targets, 6 catches, and 92 yards. So back-to-back quality days. He's looking spry as ever. Big fan of Michael Gallup. I forgot to put a note for this guy, but Curtis Samuel, 9% rostered, 7 catches, 8 targets, 51 yards, but also that rushing touchdown as well. So really, really nice usage for him. All season highs there. Also finding the end zone. And again, the Bears on Thursday Night Football, always a good spot. And I did want to mention for the never available in my league kind of guys, a couple of 0%ers out there. So Trey Palmer, 0%, Devin Tompkins, 0%. The only reason these Bucs receivers are worth mentioning is that Mike Evans injury. It was a hamstring. We don't know how severe it was, but this offense has looked steady. If I had to pick one of these guys, Palmer was making plays all preseason, scored 2 touchdowns across his 3 preseason games. He scored 2 touchdowns already through 4 weeks, despite being minimally used. But Tompkins did become a little bit more of the target hog, 4 catches, 45 yards and a TD compared to 2 catches, 6 yards and a touchdown for Palmer. But his offense is humming, and these guys could have some value should Evans end up missing extended time. K. Dotton also had a touchdown for what it's worth if you're desperate at tight end, but just noting that these guys do have a bye in week 5. So you're probably not going out that far, but in those really deep or high stakes leagues, a couple guys to keep note of.
It does not matter how grizzled and awesome your league is. These guys are available.
Yeah, there's 0% roster. They're out there. They're out there.
I don't care what you say.
Show me the league. Trey Palmer's already registered. Other dynasty leagues, he's already rostered, obviously. But other than that, I mean, come on. These guys are out there for you. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments. Check out some more videos and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.